Our message today, it's going to mean something different to every person in this room. We've all been in different experiences. We're all in different places right now. Generationally, it's going to mean something different. And I understand that. And so I hope that it speaks to you. We're going to be in the book of Ecclesiastes here shortly. When I was growing up, I grew up in a pastor's home, and I lived in 5 states, kind of in my childhood, teenage years. I was born in New Jersey, moved to Oklahoma, lived in Illinois, and then I spent most of my childhood years in Wisconsin, just outside of Milwaukee, in a little place called Greenfield. And then I spent my teenage years in Mount Vernon, Missouri, this area that we're in right now. And whenever I was in Wisconsin, one of the big things about living in Milwaukee is there's a whole lot of this thing called snow. And with Milwaukee, you have Lake Michigan, so you have the lake effect, and you have a lot of wet and dense snow. So you can build snowmen, you can build snow forts, a lot of fun to be had as a kid. And me and my younger brother, we would spend hours outside just playing in the snow. We had kind of a blessing by being pastors' kids. We lived in a parsonage, very similar to the property we have over here. It was a 3-acre lot. It was a big square, and on one corner was like the church, and on the other corner was our house, our parsonage. And then on the other corners was 2 big parking lots. And so one of the board members was the person that would plow the parking lots every single snowfall. And so they'd create these snow piles for me and my younger siblings, specifically my brother Timothy and I. And we would play on these snow piles that were like 10, 12, 14 feet tall, pretty like 5 to 7 months out of the year. We had these giant piles. So we'd build these tunnels through it. We'd build snowmen. We'd build these ramps and stuff, these sledding hills and whatnot. We got to just do whatever we wanted to do. It was just our creative land and our adventure. A lot of fun. I remember one specific time we built this tunnel, and we kind of like made this like house kind of inside this giant snow pile. It's probably 12, 14 feet tall. We built this like house inside. We probably did it way too low in the pile. Like thinking back later, I look back and go, man, if that would have collapsed, that would have not been good. Think through some of those things now. But as kids, we were not thinking that. We were just having fun. And I remember it was snowing one day, and the snowplow came out to like plow the snow pile. Every time they plow the parking lot, it pushes the snow pile a little bit, which means it changes kind of the makeup of that. Well, me and my brother, we didn't want him to break all of the stuff we had just been building over the last couple days. And so we thought it'd be a good idea to just burrow ourselves inside of the snow pile. And we're like, he can't like hit kids. Like, that's just inhumane. You can't just snow plow through children. Like, we're playing. This is our fort. My mom is standing on the porch. It's snowing. It's really hard to see very far in Wisconsin snow. And she's just screaming bloody murder like, Joshua, Timothy, get inside right now. Joshua, Timothy, come right now. And I was kind of stubborn. I was just like, no, this is our snow fort. Timothy, we're staying. Like, we're going to stand our ground. It's like our own little protest, except for we didn't know what we were doing. Eventually, we did go. And as I get to the porch, I'm like looking back. I was kind of an emotional, dramatic kid. And I start crying. I'm like, he's destroying everything. And my brother's like, oh, good, it's warm inside. I'm finally back indoors, get some hot chocolate. He didn't care. I cared. But we had these moments all the time. And we'd build things. We'd spend so much time. But the thing is no matter how much effort that we spent, no matter how much time we spent building stuff out of snow, sooner or later, a snowfall would come, or a snowplow would come, or another season would change, and everything would melt. Everything always changed. The stuff that I built when I was a kid isn't there anymore. In fact, it's probably been recreated 100 times since then, right? At some point, it always changed. In the last snowfall that we had here in Missouri, we got quite a bit of snow here in the last month or two for where we live. If I were to look at you, Abe, and say, hey, I want you to invest a bunch of your hard-earned money into snow forts, we'd probably all agree that that's probably a bad investment, right? Because a day later, it's all melting. It's going away. It's going to vanish. And so that kind of builds us into this illustration of what we see in Ecclesiastes. We'd mostly all agree that that would be foolish, but yet a lot of us, we chase after these snow structures in our own life that just melt away. And so the message introduction is the book of Ecclesiastes says all of life is like snow. It's a vapor. It's here, and then it's just quickly gone. It's essentially what he's saying. So there's this man named Solomon, And Solomon achieved a lot in his life. When we talk about like the American dream, what people aspire after in their life, if you look at Solomon, he's somebody that succeeded in all those things. Let me tell you just a little bit about how incredibly successful Solomon is in worldly standards of what he achieved. From a place of wisdom in 1 Kings chapter 3, he's around 20 years old. He gains the reign after his father David. He's now the third king, the final king of the United Kingdom of the nation of Israel. And God appears to him in a dream. And he says, if I were to give you something, what would you want? And Solomon responds, he wants an understanding mind to discern between good and evil, because he wanted to lead the nation of God's chosen people well, and he knew he couldn't do it on his own. He needed God's help. And so God was very pleased with his response. He's like, wow, this man wants wisdom. Wow. You know what, Solomon, I'm not just going to give you wisdom, but I'll also give you riches, because that was such a good answer. And so God gives this man wisdom. And now Solomon's wisdom, according to 1 Kings chapter 4, was beyond measure. Kings would travel from all over to come hear of Solomon's wisdom, and just so they could be in the presence of this wise king. Not only was he super wise, but he also was wealthy almost beyond like comprehension. I can't even really comprehend how wealthy he was. He's the wealthiest king of his time, but he might be the wealthiest person of all time. Elon Musk is worth about $327.3 billion, according to the AI overview on Google. You can look in that more. But that's $327 billion. According to most scholars, they agree that Solomon, if you were to take all of his wealth, or his net worth in our language today, and you were to put it into today's currency, it'd be somewhere between $2 and $3 trillion. That's how much money that Solomon had obtained in his wealth as king over his 40-year reign over the nation of Israel. In 2 Chronicles chapter 9, it talks about how all of his drinking cups were of gold, that silver wasn't even seen as something valuable, just everything was gold. This man was rich. He was loaded. If for you, I don't know if you're like me, but trillions is a lot of zeros, but I can't really comprehend how big that number is, to be honest. Million, I'm still trying to figure out million to billion. Like that's a lot. And when I see that Elon Musk has $327 billion, I go, that's a lot of money. I don't even know what you do with that much money, right? Well, let me put it in this perspective. So if you took really fine sand and you put 1 million grains of sand, it'd fit into 1 cup, okay? So you have 1 cup of sand, and it's 1 million grains of sand. If you wanted to go from 1 million to 1 billion, you'd go from a measuring cup to the back of a truck into the bed of the truck, and you'd fill that with sand. So you go from a cup to the bed of a truck. That's 1 million to 1 billion. If you want to go to 1 trillion, you would fill up an Olympic-sized swimming pool. So a cup is 1 million, the back of a truck is 1 billion. Solomon had an Olympic-sized swimming pool 2 to 3 times over in wealth. That's a lot of money. Okay, so in terms of riches, in terms of wisdom, he's the wisest to ever live. He has more money than you can ever imagine. He is a unique individual. He's also, with great wisdom, with his kingship, with great wealth, he also comes with power. And he is not only powerful as a king, but he is the king over God's chosen people, that God's hand is on the people. And that's who he gets to rule. And his rule is far and wide. It was from, if you're familiar with the geography of the Middle East, it went from the Euphrates River in that northeast all the way down to the border of Egypt, that whole entire area. That was all his. It was the nation of Israel. In 1 Kings chapter 10, you have the Queen of Sheba. She comes into his presence, and it says that she marveled at his wisdom. And she even says that it was beyond anything that anybody said. It surpassed all the things that she heard before. When she was in his presence, it was like, wow, this is wisdom. This is not just something that you get from earthly wisdom. No, this is something more. It is God-given wisdom. Not only was he rich and famous with great status and powerful and a king and all these things, but he also had a great spiritual legacy. And just a couple things that he achieved was he built the temple of God. His father before him could not because of the blood on his hands. So God promises David that it'd go through his lineage to Solomon, and Solomon would build the temple. And he builds the temple of God where God visibly dwelled within the Holy of Holies in this temple in a cloud. That's pretty incredible that you get to be a part of that. And not only that, but he dedicated the nation to God. He said, this is going to be a nation that is going to be under God. It's going to be a nation that we serve and we worship God and only God. Pretty incredible. But then you get to 1 Kings chapter 11, and it says Solomon's heart turns away, and he started seeking after other gods. So you see, Solomon also had about 700 wives. That's a lot of women, a lot of wives. He had about 300 concubines. And basically Solomon, with all these riches, with all this power, with all this wisdom, he basically did whatever he wanted. As his wives strayed away to other gods, if he wanted it, he could have it, and he did go after it. Not only was he have a spiritual legacy, not only did he experience every pleasure that you can experience in life, not every power, every aspect of power that you can have in this life, every wealth, all of those different features. He also is attributed in Jewish tradition to 3 books of our Bible, which are known as the wisdom literature. In his early years, he wrote what would be called Song of Solomon, which was like the celebration of love. And then you have the Proverbs, which is the wisdom for living. And then you have what we'll go through today, Ecclesiastes, which is kind of this reflection on life, meaning, purpose. Why am I here? And it's kind of the end of his life reflecting back on all that he's went through and what he's come to the conclusion of. Now, I want to build just a contrast or a comparison between Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. This was important to me. As I read one book and then I read the other, I'm like, wow, it seems like there's some contradictions here. Sometimes you read Proverbs and it's like, oh, if you work really hard or live in wisdom, then you'll be blessed. Then you get to Ecclesiastes and it's like, oh, the wicked prospers and the righteous don't. So in my head, I'm trying to like parse between these two going, well, do they contradict? And what I want to say is what we actually see is the complementary perspective that actually gives us a greater understanding of life when you put Proverbs and Ecclesiastes together. To put it more simply, Proverbs offers wisdom that generally leads to a positive outcome, but Ecclesiastes is going to address the brokenness of the world and show us that even wisdom has its limits. That Solomon, with all this God-given wisdom, still was limited. If you want to have a more specific example, if Chloe or any of these students, if you are in school right now, the wisdom would be to study for a test, because if you study, you get better grades. You've probably told that to your kids as parents, or you were told by your parents, that if you study, you get better grades. That's wisdom. It's kind of just factual, typically. That would be Proverbs. Proverbs would say, study hard, get better grades. Ecclesiastes would say, but sometimes things happen. You get sick. No matter how hard you study, you get sick, a family member or a friend passes away, or you go through really difficult circumstances in life, or mentally something happens in your mind and it's something chemical or whatever, and it's not in your control. And things happen in life and it's not your fault. It's just not fair. And so Proverbs is still true. If you study hard, these are the results that generally happen. But Ecclesiastes brings in the brokenness of the world and says, but sometimes things don't happen the way that they should. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, it's just not fair. And he looks back at life, and that's where we'll get into the book of Ecclesiastes. Solomon, to the world's eye, lived a fulfilled life, a great success. In fact, in our country today, the American dream, he fulfilled the life that most of America is spending their life chasing right now. Whether it's wealth, pleasure, success, status, likes on Facebook, Instagram, Solomon achieved it. He got it. So therefore, if the person that achieved all of those things in excess beyond anything that I'll ever be able to achieve comes to the conclusions that he does in Ecclesiastes, why do I still continue to follow in the same path? And so we're going to look at Ecclesiastes today because we're going to look back at his life, and I wanted you to recognize where Solomon comes from. I want you to recognize that in his life, he succeeded in the world's eye. He gained success, wealth, pleasure, all those things. He did it. He accomplished it. And now the question is he fulfilled? Was he satisfied with the answers that he found when he hit those mountaintop experiences? Imagine if was not just it wasn't a game for Solomon, it was his literal reality. For me, it's imagine if, Joshua, you got $1 million, what would you do? Solomon says, I have 2 trillion, I'll do whatever I want to do. He's done it. He just snaps his finger and somebody gets it for him, right? And so the title of the message today is Chasing the Wind, which comes out, it's frequently throughout Ecclesiastes, specifically at the end of chapter 2, talks about chasing the wind, striving after wind. But if you have your Bible, we will be in Ecclesiastes. We'll start in chapter 1. I promise that we're not going to read 12 chapters of Ecclesiastes this morning, but we will read a little bit, just to gain understanding of what the author is trying to convey. So in Ecclesiastes, it's important to recognize that there's this character, the preacher. So you have the author of the book that's largely attributed to Solomon in Jewish tradition, and then you have this preacher who's the author, and then you have the preacher, which is going to be throughout the book. And in the very beginning, he's going to introduce this theme. In verse 2, we'll read it in a second, but it says, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Now, I want to help us out this morning in understanding the book. There's a really important word that we have to understand in order to really grasp what this book is trying to say, what the preacher is saying. The word in your Bible might be vanity, it might be meaningless, it might be futility. I am not a Hebrew scholar, okay? I will say that, but I think there's a lot of purpose and meaning behind this word that we must understand in order to understand this book in its context. And it's the word havel. Havel is what's often translated to vanity in your Bible. But what havel actually means in its root meaning in Hebrew is breath or vapor, mist. It means it's fleeting, it's temporary. It's like trying to grab smoke. It's there, it's present, but then it's gone. It's a vapor, okay? And so we need to understand that when we read the word vanity in your text, that I want you to start thinking of the word havel instead. Replace it with havel, which means vapor, okay? The preacher he's basically going to give us this theme that everything is illusory or elusive. It's an illusion. It's like smoke. It's temporary. It's fleeting. So in verse 1 of chapter 1 in Ecclesiastes, it says this, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem, vanity or havel of havel, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, havel of havel, everything is fleeting, all is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun or life on earth? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and then the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind. And on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, they flow again. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has been already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, for will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after? What a great way to start a book. Very encouraging. Everything's meaningless. We've heard that before. Often if you've heard Ecclesiastes but you haven't read it, you'll hear that the overall synopsis is everything is meaningless. Meaningless, meaningless, everything is meaningless. Here we see that he introduces this term under the sun, which will actually be used 29 times throughout the book. We won't read every single time that it's read, but havel is also used 38 times, which is why it's so important to understand this throughout the 12 chapters of Ecclesiastes. But he says, everything under the sun has been before and will be again. There's nothing new. It's like I've been through life. I look at what happens. There's nothing new. Every time we try to grab reality, it seems to be like we're trying to grab smoke with our hand. If you have ever been outside on a cold day and your breath, it makes this like vapor, right? And it's there for a second and then it's gone. That's kind of what he's conveying. That's life. He's like, what's already there, it's just going to be gone. And what's been before you is going to be again. Very encouraging. It's not that life has no meaning, but it's that this preacher is trying to convey that life is elusive. It's difficult to grasp fully. And if you try to grasp it, you're going to fail every time because you can't grasp it. And he gets to verse 3 and he says, what does a man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? He's asking this question. He's like, so you're telling me that I labor day in and day out, day after day. I go to work. I just keep working with my hands. I sweat to my brow. I just keep going day after day after day, and it doesn't matter? Like, it doesn't matter if I exist or not. And he goes through these cycles. He says there's the generational cycle. You have human nature. Somebody's born, somebody dies. Somebody's born, somebody dies. Somebody's born, somebody dies. There's this cycle going on. And then he's like, meanwhile, whether I exist or not, people are being born, people are dying. There's also this solar cycle. The sun comes up, the sun goes down, and then it hastens quickly to the next day. Sun goes up, sun comes down. Guess what? Before I was born, the sun came up, didn't it, Abe? It still came up, and it went down. You didn't know I existed or not. Your life was really not affected by anything of whether or not I was born or not. Because the sun goes up, the sun goes down. The sun goes up, the sun goes down. Somebody's born, somebody dies. Somebody's born, somebody dies. He adds the wind cycle into this. So we got two cycles right here. It's kind of just chaos, okay? All of these cycles that are happening. You got the wind. It's invisible. It blows. It blows to the north. It blows to the south. It goes in the circular pattern. Side note, I think it's pretty incredible that he talks about the wind cycle and the water cycle far beyond, like far before any of our modern technology and what we understand about stuff today and how accurate all of that is. I just think that's really cool. But anyways, you have this wind cycle, and it's just going everywhere, right? And it never reaches the destination. It never makes it. And we don't see it. We feel it, and then it's gone, and then we feel it again, and then it's gone. And the wind has nothing to do with whether I exist or not. It's like, why do I labor in day after day after day? And then on top of that, you got the water cycle. You got these rivers. It flows down into the sea goes up into the sky then rains down, and then it goes down the river and into the sea and then into the sky, and it just never stops. You got the sun, you got the sea, you got the human life, the generational cycle. You have all of these cycles that are happening regardless if I'm here. And he says life is a vapor. It's all just vanity. It's all just havel. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There's nothing new under the sun. There's some poetic nature there. What has been done is what will be done. There's nothing new under the sun. Have any of you guys seen the movie Facing the Giants? I know when I was younger in church, that was kind of that was like the movie that I think we all had like a church night, and we watched this movie, Facing the Giants. If you're unfamiliar with this movie, it's a football movie that's about a lot more than football. You have this coach named Grant Taylor, and he's actually kind of trying to fight for his job a little bit, and he has this losing football team, and they kind of turn everything around. Well, specifically, there's this one scene in the movie where Grant Taylor is in the locker room with all of his team. And he says, what's the purpose of this team? And one of the knucklehead, like upperclassmen kids kind of says, win championships. And everyone kind of agrees with him, and they all kind of, ruffle shoulders and laugh, and they're like, yeah. And even the assistant coach is like, yeah, that's it. And they're all kind of getting hyped. And the coach just kind of stands there, and he kind of just says, no. Winning football games is just too small of a thing to live for. And everybody just goes silent in the room. They're like, I thought we got the answer right. Why else would we be here? To win football games. That's why we're here. And the coach just brings it back into reality. It's like, no, you have a greater purpose than winning football games. Like, that's not it. Even the assistant coach looks at him and goes, Grant, if it's not about winning games, why am I here? I thought that's what we're doing. And he brings us back into this reality. And after talking a little bit with his team, he gets to this really profound moment that is really what the author of Ecclesiastes is kind of saying and conveying. He says, if we aren't living to honor God, then we're living for nothing. That's what he tells his football team. If you're not living to honor God, then you're living for absolutely nothing. But then he goes on to say, because they're now kind of conflicted of like, well, does God not like football or whatever? And he says, God likes each of you. He's with each of you. He's for each of you. He created you with a purpose, with a meaning. Your life matters to him. So of course, if football matters to you, of course it matters to him. But I just need you to understand that football is not your purpose in life. You have a God-given purpose. And if football becomes the focus of your life, that's something that's temporary. It's quickly fleeting. You are more valuable than just a football game. A life anchored in God is a life anchored in eternity. And even the small things then have eternal purpose because God's glory is eternal. Ultimately, every trophy collects dust. Every medal collects dust. It doesn't really matter. Records get beaten. Applauses eventually fade. There's a guy named Saquon Barkley, the running back for the Philadelphia Eagles in this last Super Bowl. And 3 days after they win the Super Bowl, go through the parade, mountaintop experience. He's been waiting his whole life for this moment that he finally gets to hold that Lombardi trophy. And he, in front of millions of fans, he finally wins the game. 3 days later, he says, "It's not what I thought it would be. I hit the mountaintop experience, and now we're already on to next year. We got another one to chase after." If you think back, even if you're a football fan, I know Pastor Lance probably knows every single Super Bowl winner to date, but for the rest of us, you probably don't know who won 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, because it just fades. It's fun in the moment. It's great. It's not a bad thing to like football. It's not a bad thing to want to win a championship, but there's so much more to life than just that simple thing. I remember I had this really awesome catch when I was like 12 years old in this Little League game of baseball where I'm on second base, I run over, jump over first base, I'm parallel with the ground, I catch the ball. It was amazing. But even telling that to you right now, you're like, I don't care. I was a 12-year-old that made a really cool play in baseball. We all probably have that cool play. To me, I'm like, yeah, that was the time. But you can just flip open your phone and go find as many cool catches as you want. Probably find someone that does a double front flip over something and catch something. And, you can find something better. Life's a vapor. It's temporary. The applause fades. Somebody's going to do it better. There's nothing new under the sun when we're living for ourselves. When we're living for the things of the earth, there's nothing new under the sun. Then we get to Ecclesiastes chapter 3, which is just more seasons of life. It's the cycles of change. I'm not going to read it to you, but you can glance at it while I'm talking. The preacher shows us more illustrations and seasons of cycles. It just all keeps spinning. The generational cycle never stops. The sun keeps going up and down, right? The earth goes around the solar system. It just never stops. Life and death, planting and harvesting. We have to plant food, we harvest food, we eat food, we plant it, we harvest it, we plant it, we harvest it. Just doesn't stop. You got to eat something. So you got to keep doing that. Regardless if I'm here or not, somebody has to plant the food and somebody has to harvest the food, right? And there's many more examples. But the point is, it's all temporary and the cycle never ends. It never ends. But there's a really important part to what we're seeing here. There's an important point. It's that these cycles show us that change is inevitable. Regardless if I want change to happen or not, change is going to happen. Sometimes we don't love God's timing on things. Go, well, I could have picked a better time than this, Lord. This is uncomfortable. This is difficult. And I'm not trying to make fun of a situation that maybe that you're in right now. Not trying to say that there's a lack of compassion. It might be very difficult, and God sees you in your circumstances. But sometimes God's timing doesn't make sense to us. But guess what? When change comes, whether I like it or not, it really doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, the sun goes up and the sun comes down. Somebody's born, somebody dies. The wind keeps going, the rain keeps going. It doesn't really matter if I'm okay with the fact that change is happening or not. Change just happens. And guess what? Not only does change happen to us, but people also change in the process. If you're next to your spouse or a friend or anybody next to you, they probably are not the same person they were 5 years ago. We're constantly changing, evolving, growing. We get to chapter 3, we get to verse 11 through 13, and I am going to read that. So if you have your Bible, chapter 3, verses 11. He has made everything beautiful in its time. I like that part. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I perceived that there is nothing better for them to do than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also, I really, really like this part. Also, that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. This is God's gift to man. Enjoy life. So for 3 chapters, he's now been telling you that it doesn't matter if I live or not, everything just keeps happening. So he's like, since it's temporary and since it doesn't matter, you may as well grab a burger, get a drink, find a friend, and just slow down and enjoy life for a second. In other words, he's like, play a board game. It's not that serious. It is serious, but it's not that serious because it's not really about you. Whether you're here or not, it still is going to move forward. Everything's going to still happen. In verses 12 and 14, the next few verses, we see that the preacher tells us to enjoy life because it's short. I do love in verse 11, it says that God made everything beautiful in its time. We talked about how we don't always love the timing of things. But in God's timing, we see 2 things here. One, he's at work, and he's going to make things beautiful in its time. Whether that's my time or not, it's his time, and it will be beautiful. And 2, he addresses the fact that God is sovereign in every season. I'm not sovereign in every season. I'm not sovereign at all. And all sovereign God is sovereign over every season, every change, every moment of life. Although we may not understand all things, we know that God has a purpose for all things. And so I might not know the purpose of the reason I'm going through what I'm going through in this moment, in this season, or things in life. We've all had changes and difficulty in life. Some people in this room, you're saying, I'm in a difficulty right now. For others, you're like, I've been through some really, really hard times, Josh, and you wouldn't understand. I probably don't. I've never been in your shoes. I wouldn't pretend to understand. But I can relate in my own toil, in my own struggle. And he's not saying that it doesn't matter that you're struggling. God sees you. He loves you. He's with you. He's connected. He loves his children. He created you with a purpose. He's on your side. But he's saying that you're not going to ever understand all things. I'm an eternal God. Just trust me. And what we see here is we also see that not everything is Havel. Because what God does endures forever. And we see that throughout the Bible. That God things endure forever. He's steadfast in all he does. He's steadfast in his character. So there's a distinction between God and me. That the things that I do without God on my own is all Havel. It's all a vapor. It's meaningless. Meaningless. It doesn't matter because ultimately it's just temporary. It's like building a snowman over and over, just waiting for the warm weather to melt it back down into a puddle just so I can build it again, just for it to melt again. But he said when you take God and you put him into it, now the God things, the sovereign God over all things, who's eternal, he is in control. And now even the smallest things have eternal weight. It's interesting. Without God, nothing matters. With God, all of a sudden, everything has purpose. We also see that the response to inevitable change is what we just said, trust and obedience. It's not about controlling change. It's about recognizing that God's been in control the whole time, and he's asking me to let go of my hands, open them, and say, okay, God, I don't understand, but you got it. If you hold the whole universe in the palm of your hand, I think I can trust you. But sometimes we really struggle with that. We struggle with trusting in a God that we seemingly can't see, although we see his creation and what he's doing all around us all the time. We constantly see him working, but yet it's so hard to trust because we're trying to grasp at smoke. We're chasing wind. Over and over. I have to see it in order to believe it. And he's saying, no, just trust I'm sovereign in this situation. I will get you through it. Amen. I'm going to make things beautiful in its time. In this brief escape from nothing new under the sun thinking in these few verses, the preacher shows us that there is security in our Creator despite the fact that we don't have control. I don't know about you. This might be just a struggle for some and not all, but I like control at times. There's times in my life that I sit back and God just shows me, hey, Josh, you need to let go because you don't have control, and the problem is you. The problem is that you're trying to control things that you don't have control over. So just let me do my thing, and you just be obedient and trust me. I have your back. I got you. Things are going to be beautiful in time. Now, that doesn't always mean that it's in my time. What a blessing it is when it is in my time. What gratitude I have. But a lot of the time, it's not. In a conversation this week that I had with somebody, they were sharing that we often want results without obedience. A thought that I had that crossed my mind is my father, he was recently diagnosed with diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And one thing with type 2 diabetes is my dad, he's been working so hard for years now to get weight and health under control. And he has put so much time and effort into trying to get things right, but over and over, it's just like everything goes wrong as he tries. Starts working out, tears a meniscus. Gets it back, starts working out, tears it again, or something like that. It's just constant things after time. Starts taking some sort of medication, and then it's bad for his body, or he takes something and there's an allergic reaction, whatever. It's like no matter what, he tries. But the point is this, with diabetes, a big part of that is like your A1C and all of those things, the blood sugar. If a diabetic is told by the doctor, stop eating sugar, stop eating McDonald's, stop doing this, whatever, in excess, but that person's like, no, I just really love gummy bears, and I'm going to keep eating a pound a day. I'm gonna eat McDonald's every day because I really enjoy it. It's pleasurable to me. That person's being disobedient. But then they turn around and they say, man, I really want God to heal me of my diabetes. I really want God to heal me of my health problems. But yet they're not following in accordance with obedience. We do that with life in our own situations constantly. God, give me the results, give me the blessing. I don't really want to do the obedient part because that means I have to die to myself. And I don't really want to die to myself. Which, in the gospel, if you gave your life to Jesus, that requires dying to self. And let me say that we've been talking about this in youth. There's a difference between believing and following Jesus. Even the demons believe in Jesus, but following Jesus takes everything. To take up your cross and follow him. It's a one-way ticket. I gave my life up. I chose to say, God, I trust you, and I'm going to obey your word. I'm going to follow in accordance to what you've called over my life. And so we don't always control change. And according to Ecclesiastes, it tells us that we really don't have control at all. Even when you feel like you do control things, you don't. Because at the end of the day, everything you do is temporary. It's like a melting snowman. It's like chasing the wind. It's a vapor. It's not even there. In fact, when we feel like we have control, it's really just an illusion that we've built in ourselves. It's elusive. It's illusory. It's not really there. Control is nothing but an illusion. It's havel. Now, when change happens, I always get to control my response. I might not control change happening to me, but something I can control is how I deal with change. I can control how I respond to change. I can control how I respond to situations. The Colgroves, Greg and Rochelle Colgrove, members at this church, one of the things that they've said for years, and if you've been to their marriage workshop, they use this in their curriculum, but it's a simple quote that has become a part of my life for a few years now. It's, I'm responsible for my thoughts, feelings, actions, and beliefs. I am always responsible for my thoughts, my feelings, my actions, and beliefs. And in the marriage setting, it's I'm responsible for me, you're responsible for you, but I'm also responsible for the environment that I bring into this relationship. I'm responsible for how I influence and impact other people. So even if I influence you, I'm still not responsible for the way that you respond, but I am responsible for how I respond and what environment that I walk into it. When change happens, you're always responsible for you. Moving forward in Ecclesiastes, the next 4 chapters, 4 through 8, we see just vanity after vanity after vanity. Solomon or the author is looking at this going, man, I've accomplished this, and he comes to the same conclusion every time. He goes through power, wealth, pleasure, justice, wisdom, you name it. He even says, if you live a long life, somebody else just gets to use all your riches. You spent all your life building up all this wealth, and then your brother or your son or somebody else gets to spend all the riches after living a wicked life. The wicked prosper and the righteous die. How is that fair? It's not. He didn't ask you if it was fair. He just said that's the reality. He said sometimes that just happens. And so he goes through this. He's like, it's all just Havel. The only truly meaningful life is a life that honors God and is following after Jesus. If the thing that I'm striving for is like Solomon, I just want to have his wealth, his status, and all the pleasure, I can chase all of those things. I have the ability to make those decisions, but it's just chasing after vapor. It's chasing after something that's an illusion that's not really there. In Ecclesiastes chapter 9 and 10, we see the reality of death in our call to enjoy life. And I really like this part because I like the part that it interweaves joy throughout this thing. And so in the midst of suffering and struggle and this temporary, this life is meaningless kind of talk, there's nothing new under the sun, he still weaves throughout all of this book this enjoyment of life, of, hey, slow down, enjoy life. So in chapter 2, you see there's nothing better for a person than to eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. Also, just hear the repetition throughout this. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, he says there's nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live, also that everyone eat and drink and take pleasure in their toil, God's gift to man. And then we move forward, we get to chapter 5. It says, good and fitting is it to eat and drink and find enjoyment in all the toil. Those who have possessions and wealth should enjoy them. It's a gift from God. Get to chapter 8. It says, I commend joy, for man is nothing better under the sun but to eat and drink and to be joyful. For this will go with him in his toil through the days of his life that God has given him under the sun. And now we get to chapters 9 and 10. In chapter 9, verses 7 through 9 says, go, eat your bread with joy, drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love, all the days of your vain life that he has given you under the sun. I think it's interesting that he talks about joy here, says go enjoy life, but he doesn't want you to miss the fact that life is vain, that it's Havel. I kind of chuckled as well when I read that. I was like, he would insert that right there. All of the days of your Havel, vaporizing, temporary life. If it's going to be short, you might as well sit back and enjoy it. He's looking at you going, there's been some really difficult times in my life, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's all temporary. And no matter what I do, all these cycles are still happening. So he's saying, if you can just sit back and just say, God, I trust you. I'm going to obey your word. And I'm going to go grab a burger and some fries, a Coke, a friend, tell my wife I love her, play a board game, throw a football around, and say, you know what? I'm not in control. I will never be in control. So why am I trying to be in control? James chapter 1, this part reminds me of the book of James. In chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, I won't say the whole verse, but it talks about counting it as joy when you encounter various trials, when we encounter difficult times, when we encounter change that we didn't ask for, when the uncertainty in life happens to us, and we didn't approve it, but it happened. It says, count it as joy. Now, I understand that can be a lot more difficult to do in practice than it is to preach or to hear or to read. But that's what God's word says. It says when you're in the difficulty of life, slow down for a second. Life is fleeting and unpredictable whether you like it or not. Whether you're okay with that or not, it's fleeting and it's unpredictable and you can't control anything. So he says, why don't you slow down and enjoy it? Breathe. I know you're in pain. Breathe. I'm with you. I'm your comforter. I'm the God of all comfort. I'm here sitting with you in your trial. I just need you to see me. I need you to recognize that I'm making all things beautiful in its time. I need you to recognize that just because you see your pain and you don't see the whole picture, I do. In fact, I created everything you see. I created the whole universe with a word, with a breath. Do you not think that I'm sovereign over your situation as well? Enjoy food, drink, have relationships. They are blessings from God to enjoy, regardless of the circumstance. And then we get to the final two chapters of Ecclesiastes, chapters 11 and 12. It's kind of his conclusion. It's preparing for the end. And I just title it by the very final paragraph. Fear God and keep his commandments. Here's the author's hope-filled challenge for all of us. Don't waste your life chasing the wind. Instead, live for what matters. Stop chasing wind. You're never going to find it. It's invisible. It seems like it's there for a second, and then it's gone. Comes back, but then it's gone. Comes back. It's once again, it's just chasing after nothing. And this is Solomon, somebody that has had everything. He's experienced the American dream. He's got it all. And he looks back and goes, it's all vain. It's all a vapor. None of it comes with me. What's the point? And he basically says, there is no point. I can have all the riches in the world. You know what? I can turn that 2 trillion into 20 trillion, and it doesn't matter. Add as many zeros on the back of your bank account as you want. It doesn't matter. Give me more people under me. Make me more powerful. Doesn't matter. Give me more pleasure. It never satisfies. It never will satisfy. It never will fulfill what I'm looking for, what I'm longing for. I was created by an eternal God as an eternal person with an eternal purpose, trying to live in a temporary world. But I'm trying to be satisfied by temporary stuff, and it's just not working. Don't waste your life chasing after wind. You can't stop change. I know that this message is repetitive over and over and over again. But I want you to understand that he is repetitive over and over and over again. As you walk through Ecclesiastes, you see the same thing over and over. Havel is used 38 times, like I was mentioned. It's the same thing. He's trying to convey the process that is going through his own mind of life is a vapor. Why have I spent all of my life trying to seek after nothing? And we're going to finally get to his main point. If the wisest man to live couldn't find satisfying answers through self-centered pleasure, we have to look to someone greater than Solomon. Because we're not going to achieve what Solomon achieved. I'll just put it that way. Nobody in this room is going to have $2 to $3 trillion in their bank account. That's just my guesstimation, I guess. His name is Jesus, and in him lie all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. Solomon was granted divine wisdom from God, but you have the Holy Spirit living inside of you as a believer, as a follower of Jesus, and Jesus is with you. He's walking with you where you are, and in Jesus, in Christ Jesus, lie all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. You have everything you need to live a life with an eternal purpose. Your life is not meaningless. Once again, when we hear meaningless, all is meaningless, no. It's not that everything is meaningless. It's that if God's not in the center of your life, then it is meaningless. But if God is in the center of your life, now you've found eternal purpose. Here's the final point that the author makes. His final conclusion with all the wisdom that he's been given. He gets to the very end of chapter 12 and verses 13 and 14. You can follow if you want to. Chapter 12, starting verse 13. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God, keep his commandments. For this is the whole entire duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment, every secret thing, whether good or evil. No matter how good of a life you've lived or evil of a life you lived, we all go through the same judgment. A just God, at one day you're going to stand before the throne of God, and it's just you. Your spouse isn't there, your parents aren't there, your friends aren't there. It's going to be you before an almighty, sovereign God. Solomon spent a life in excess, wealth, power, and pleasure. And he gets to the very end of his life, and he recognizes this. Rather than all of those things, it's more important to be committed to God, to honor God, and to fear God more than anything else. If you can't get it all right, doesn't matter what generation you're in. If your life is just starting or you're getting towards the end, regardless, he's like, just get that right. Just get that right. Honor God, commit to God, fear God. Get that part right. If you can get that right, then just let the rest follow. If you can get that right, then you'll be fine, because now you're living for an eternal purpose. Whether you're in middle school or high school, just starting life. If you're me, I'm 26 years old looking towards the rest of my life. I get married here in a couple months. I look towards all these things. He's given us an eternal purpose. If I can just get that right, to follow his commandments, to commit to God first, then regardless of the toil that's to come before me, knowing that there is going to be struggle and hard time, if I can just recognize that, then I can trust and obey, and God is sovereign over all things, and in time, he's going to make things beautiful. I want to end with 3 scripture verses from the New Testament. Now, I didn't put a lot of cross-references throughout this message. I wanted to kind of get to the heart of Ecclesiastes, but all throughout the Bible, there's this message is conveyed, and especially in the New Testament. And so specifically, I want to look at 3 passages, 3 verses, and then I'll pray, and then we'll be done. 1 John chapter 2, verse 17 says, "The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever." Colossians 3, 2 through 3 says this, "Set your minds on things that are above, not on the things that are on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God." Sounds a lot like what we just learned. And I love the part. I don't want us to miss the part. For you have died. I think sometimes we think following Jesus is just glossy. It's all great and perfect. I get to do what I want, and I get this holy ticket into eternity. God loves you, and he's a gracious God. I'm so happy for God's grace. I'm so grateful for God's grace. But don't miss the part that following Jesus, it costs you everything. It's a one-way ticket. It's not one foot in, one out. It's to trust and obey that he's going to make everything beautiful in its time. It's to set our minds on eternity as eternal creations with an eternal God. And then 2 Corinthians 4:18, we'll end with this. "So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." I think that sums it up pretty good. We don't fix our eyes on what is seen, but we keep our eyes locked on God, an eternal God who's sovereign over all things, who's going to make things beautiful in its time. So just slow down, enjoy the life that the life that you've been given, and recognize that you're not in control, never will be, but that's okay, because God's in control, and he understands. If you guys would bow your heads with me. God, I know that this is going to impact us all individually in different ways, different seasons of life, different hardships, different generations. God, but I just pray that as our hearts have been opened in this time, as we receive your word, that we be transformed. God, if something needs to change in my life perspective-wise, God, I just pray that right now we wouldn't wait, that we would choose to live for you today and not wait for another day, that I don't want to give encouragement to my friends and family at their funeral, but I want to tell them about things today, God, that you would just give us the boldness and the wisdom and the guidance to live our life today. God, thank you for all that you're doing in this church body. God, I pray for any specific needs in this room, that with the hardships that people are going through today, God, that you'd be in their midst, that you'd meet them where they're at. that we'd recognize that everything is beautiful in your timing. And so, God, just give us the comfort and the love and the help in this present time in our afflictions. God, that we can find joy in your trials and in trials because we know that you're with us. God, help us keep a perspective of an eternal mindset, that we keep our eyes on things above, not just on everything temporary around us that's vanishing away before our eyes, but that we'd keep our eyes locked on you, committed to you, in a life that honors you. Use this church to make a difference in this neighborhood, in this city, and in our families. It's in your name, amen.